So this next video we're going to go over is I believe it's a Senate hearing
Yeah.
committee uh,
Abortion.
on abortion, and one of the senators, Senator Hawley, is called transphobic. This is from NBC News.
Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist.
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So you are
pregnant.
denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where
No,
they're
they're
told
allowed
that
to
they're
question me.
opening up people to violence?
We have a good
by
time in my
questioning?
class. You should join.
I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot
I
just in this
know,
exchange.
absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
Wow. Wow. So, and they want their college debt forgiven, right? Forgive their college debt so this idiot professor can collect a paycheck, a huge paycheck every year.
God.
You got to be kidding me.
That's yeah. So this is kind of because I know that the military has been in this giant influx of trans everything, including trans affirming surgeries for service members. They're doing it for kids. We discussed this last time we talked, where children's hospitals are doing this. Where does this go? I mean, at what point, what happens here?
Well, I think what's happening is we're seeing the complete moral breakdown of our country, and I'll give it to the leftists. A lot of the credit due to them for them pushing the issue, and a lot to those so-called Republicans and stuff who never oppose it and don't have the courage even yet. Even pastors and priests who don't have the courage to oppose something when it's absolutely wrong. And it is wrong. It's not true. They say follow the science when it comes to COVID. And then when it comes to the basic science of reproductive capacity, they got a professor that can't even understand what that is.
Right.
And, it's what I want to be. I mean, I proclaim to be the King of England and then demand that everybody call me sire and bow down to me. I don't think that professor would be bowing down to me, calling me the King of England, and start recognizing my right to be the King of England. And it only works when it fits what their desires are.
Right.
And unfortunately, most of their desires in these things are perverse. And the reality is this breaks down to sex. Sex is the bottom line of all this transphobic, homosexuality. All of it breaks down to sex, and it's an inability to control themselves carnally, and it's lust. And people may argue that, may say, "Well, you're wrong on that." Well, okay, you have your opinion as well, but the reality is that's what the whole conversation is about: is sex. It's
right.
If two men can love each other, well, so can a man and a woman, and it's just they're trying to undermine the foundational truths of life itself, and you've heard it said that well, if homosexuality is right and all this trans is right, is how come we've been having children with men and women, and that's the only capacity that that's happened in from the beginning of time, as far as we know. and but it's an agenda. And if you can undermine the moral capacity of the American people to understand right from wrong, then it's easy for the politicians to lead them around by the nose to anything, because then you can say what can you argue? The only thing that they deny is the basic foundation and the principles of right and wrong, and which is where the conservatives come down, if you will, is they have a sense of right and wrong, and they don't want wrong pushing right off the playing field, and but that's what's happening.
So I'm going to pull up something here that you will probably find very disturbing. Let's see if I can get this to scale correctly. Before I switch over to that, when it comes to this mass trans movement within our country, not just, I mean, it's mostly just our country.
Well, I imagine that Britain's got a fair amount of it.
It's nowhere near the talking point in the UK as it is here in Canada. So Canada's got this it's a really bad situation going on there too, is the increase.
And they should build a wall.
Yeah, right. The increase in gender dysphoria. So that's one of the metrics that you can mark this, like track this on, is how pre-2010 how small gender dysphoria, transgenderism was in the population versus how much it is now. And I try to look at this from at least some degree of an economics model. And you could possibly look at it as another way you could look at this is
population control.
Population control. Exactly. This is obviously being pushed. This is being made into something that these people can, they're utilizing as a mechanism for controlling. And I would say these people, this is your government officials, this is your far left environmentalists, this is your university professors. They push this doctrine and they make this think tank, and they preach it to the university students as Bible. And they were doing this 2008, 9, probably more like 10, 11, because I was there. I was at university when they were discussing it, but it was so soft.
But they were still pushing the homosexual agenda.
Yes,
they had to get that through first to get this one through.
Yeah, and then
it's
around
true. It's
100%, 100%
stepping stones.
Yeah, but by 2014,
what's next?
15. Oh, I could tell you what I think's next.
I think it's next. Children.
I think it's pedophilia. I think it's legalization of that. You could go into the Malik statue, but it's got to be population control, because what these kids, and like Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman, they're trying to get earlier and earlier to do not just physical, or not just like, what are they doing? The chemical, using chemical hormone therapy, which they say is reversible. But as some of these people that have been on hormone therapy now for 2, 3, 4 years, they can't ever fully come back from that level of therapy. That
professor, Mac, when she was talking to Hawley, Senator Hawley, she said, talking about what's it, 1 in 5 transgender or whatever people commit suicide or think about committing suicide. What's that tell you?
Right.
What's that tell you? If 20% of the people involved in this are killing themselves, there's a whole nother issue there that she's trying to blame on people who don't recognize them. That's not what the issue is.
Right.
The issue is there's a mental problem there. There is an issue, a psychological issue there that's being disguised and tried to be made a norm. They try to make it acceptable. And when it becomes acceptable, right or wrong, then they can push their agenda forth, and it's not right. And a lot of those suicides, what I've heard from the reading that I've done on that, are by those who have regrets about the surgeries that they or whatever chemical treatments that they've had,
Yep.
and they realize that it was wrong, but it doesn't turn around easy.
Right. Well,
if it can at all.
well, in the ones that they're doing now, they're doing this stuff to kids at 6, 7 years old for hormone therapy. And you're talking, they never hit puberty.
Child abuse.
Yeah, yeah. And in some cases, these kids, even if they get off the blockers, there have been minimal cases, because we don't know yet. It's all so new, where in some cases these kids never hit puberty.
Hey, well, I'll tell you something: is children who have suffered starvation, they end up as adults with weaker bones. They have weaker immune systems. There's all kinds of problems that keep, even though that they survived starvation, and then were brought on where they can have a normal diet. Is the repercussions from that stretch of time where they were suffering through starvation for a period of time in their youth, and then they're rescued from that environment where that they can actually eat healthy and be taken care of medically, as they have lifelong lasting repercussions from that period of malnutrition. It can be illnesses, weak bones. There can be a number of things that can happen, bad teeth. All kinds of things can come from that, but there's repercussions from that because their body's developing, and when it's being held back from developing in other areas because of malnutrition, as things don't develop as fully as they should, under normal conditions. The same thing with the transgender, when they start playing with their hormones and all that, and then all of a sudden their guardian or the court or somebody comes in and saves that child from that abuse and stops it, is that child's still going to have a period of scars from that. And that's funny, because the left, if anybody calls somebody a name, unless it's a leftist calling a conservative a name, is they call that abuse, and they go, they're going to suffer damage for their life, and this is that, but they ignore this.
Right.
They ignore the physical consequences of what's going to happen to those children when, in fact, they're given some type of drug,
correct,
or treatment that's going to either enhance or stymie their growth into a male, or as a boy or girl,
right,
into a young man or young woman. But they completely ignore that,
and they don't know the long-term ramifications of this. Like, so, as a society, I mean, who's going to pay? If the chart I have popped up right now, in 2010.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not exactly sure to how many. My guess is this is per every 100,000. That's usually how these charts work. That's less than what looks like 10 or 20 per 100,000. If I'm going to assume that's 100,000, right? In 2010, and it ticked up a little bit in 2011. But something magical happened in late 2011, 2012, and then again, really stark increase in 2015. Right as Trump took office, essentially, right? I mean, or was it, he was running, and Obama was on his way out. But if you notice that, first of all, it affects females more, and these are females that are under 18. It switches where it's more males at college.
And these are the ones getting the transgender therapies or surgeries.
Yeah,
or what
these are a combination of this is gender dysphoria. So this can be these are people that these are just people that they're marking that are identifying as. And this stops at 2017. 2017 wasn't that bad. 2022 is a whole nother. I haven't found a chart yet that's tracking 2021, 2022 trans identification, but I mean, I'm hearing as much as 30-40% of any given school. So to me, there's a good term that kind of expresses this. It's called rapid onset gender dysphoria, which has more to do with groupthink and a social contagion. That level of social contagion not getting checked, and if the medical institutions are all just going along with it because it's a cash cow, if you end up having, let's just say on a low end, 10% of the country that is not able to reproduce, what kind of insane mental issues are we going to have when they're in their 30s, 40s, when they all of a sudden they want to have kids but they can't? Or society, let's say society takes a pivot and rejects them. These are people that will not be able to have kids, and that means that those are people that are not going to put back into the society to cover things like Social Security, taxes, because those kids won't exist. So,
well, they can fill that with illegal immigrants and make them citizens. That's what their answer is to fill the void with others that they can control.
I mean, but even then, at a certain point, those immigrants do not ride this line much at all. I mean,
I'm sure they don't.
You're immigrants coming from Nicaragua, Honduras, Mexico. These are
little by Catholic Spain.
These are a little
Portugal.
Right. These are Catholic heavy and conservative on the core family principle. Yep. So yeah, maybe they'll vote Democrat because that's the only way they're going to get in. But how long are they going to vote Democrat for before they're like, but we're already in now. We don't want our country to look like that country, because they don't want this country to look like that. They walk thousands of miles to get here for a reason. So this is a temporary fix, but what happens even if you get the voting block, or you get the illegals to come in and cover the taxes, and you get things like that to happen? What's going to happen with all these people though right now that are going to be that are going to turn against the system? That's where I worry about it. That's where I'm like, something bad's there's going to be a big reckoning for this stuff.
Well, there should be a reckoning in the colleges right now and in the public school system, is because they're teaching more about sexuality, either perverse or normal, mostly perverse is their push, than they are about the academics. And not only are the students being brainwashed into this is acceptable to think that the 6-year-old friend of theirs who's got long hair and her name's Sally is now Joe, and is a boy. Well, they're also missing reading, mathematics, science, because how science even fit into this? I mean, as far as science doesn't even fit into this, and this is an experiment, and so they're losing all of those things, and they're losing the moral foundation of which to make good, common sense, long-term decisions that affect the posterity of our children and our grandchildren. So what happens is we have a wreck brought to us by a bunch of leftists, and it's a small minority. They just have a big mouth, and they're loud, and then they've accumulated a lot of money.
Yep.
And they're the pets of the press, and so then they get a lot of airtime. So then people think that they're larger than they are, but they're not. And really, what they are is a paper tiger, and it's really a small minority. Even though the numbers even chirp up according to the chart, and regardless of what they are.
Those aren't the people talking; those are just kids.
No. Yeah, right, because they're the ones being taught this.
Because you're talking the paper tigers, the ones that you're talking about. Those are those university professors, the media elite, Hollywood elite that are pushing the propaganda, the political elite that are pushing that propaganda.
Be-
But
because
those
they
numbers
have
are
children
massive.
Now they have children, and they
Right.
want them to teach this to their children and
Yep.
practice this.
Well,
That's
these people
where
won't
that's
even have
coming
kids.
from.
These people
Huh?
won't even have kids because they're already
Yeah.
getting hormone blockers. Now, the ones that are being taught were like my
They
generation.
adopt them.
My.
They do.
I know.
I mean,
Oh,
look
God.
at it.
That's even worse.
Look at
That's-
Buttigieg.
Oh,
Yeah.
that guy.
I mean, you know, they even had one of them laying in the hospital bed like he was having labor pains or something. I don't know what the deal was. You know, you're a man. You're not having labor pains.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
I know.
That now they're doing
Yeah.
surgeries giving men wombs.
Yeah, well, have
That's
at
a-
it.
Yeah.
Have at it. You know, it's no good will come of it. That's for absolute sure.
No.
And you know, and Mac, the reality is this is why those of us who know right from wrong, who have the concepts of truth, is that we need to be outspoken. We've got to stop being shy
Yeah.
about opening our mouths.
Yep.
And stop worrying about them calling us names, saying, "Oh, well, you're a homophobe, or you're a this or that." Really? Well, you just called me a name, a homophobe,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're calling me the name. I'm not calling you a name. I'm saying what you're doing is wrong, and for your own benefit, I'm going to tell you it's wrong.
Right.
And but I don't want your blood in my head, as the scripture says, for me not warning you. But I'll tell you this is they are the ones who are continually suing and attacking us, those who don't agree with their theory and their perverse practices. And it's going to continue that way as long as we allow them to. And if we continue to allow them to, because we're tolerant and we can't judge anybody, we can't make a decision and tell anybody they're doing anything wrong, well, we should expect a lot more of it to come, and it'll be worse.